Hey there everyone, welcome to the sky this month for February of 2025. We're now right in the middle of winter and thankfully the days are getting longer, the nights are getting shorter. However, we still have plenty of opportunity each night with still fairly long nights if you can brave the cold to get out there and take a look at all the best that the winter sky has to offer us. February is the peak month for viewing the winter constellations and the host of winter deep sky objects, specifically all the wonderful astrophotography objects in the winter Milky Way. But just quickly before I get into the night sky tour using Stellarium, I have a couple images to share here. Both of them this month are from new member Ken Leadham, who's just joined up with the club. So the first one that we have here is this wonderful image that Ken has shared of the Heart Nebula. And the Heart Nebula is a Sharpless 2190. It's an emission nebula located in Cassiopeia. It's named because it does actually look like a heart. Not so much like a Valentine's Day kind of heart, but actually like a human anatomical heart. Now I had to flip the image on its side here just to fit it in the PowerPoint, but this is a wonderful image that Ken has shared with me. And Ken took this image on his, what he says is his smallest scope, the Dwarf 3. And this image is 16 55-second frames stacked together. And it is a beautiful image. You can see the emission regions here forming that heart shape with the nice star cluster in the middle and the dark areas and dark patches of dust all around it. So this is a wonderful image that Ken has shared. And the second one we have, which is also from Ken, is NGC 1977. That is known as the Running Man Nebula. And it's located in constellation of Orion. It's an H2 emission region. And it's called the Running Man because, as you can see here, this area right up here kind of looks like a humanoid figure with its arms outstretched taking a run. So this was given to me by Ken. He said he took it on December 13th of last year with his Celestron Origin 6-inch smart scope and 23.5 minutes of data captured on that scope with a Celestron dual band filter. So that is a wonderful image right there, and this is a popular target for astrophotographers, and Ken did a great job capturing it here. Really nice colors and really nice imagery that he's got. And again, if you have, like I say every month, if you have any images you'd like to share with me, any sketches, any observing tales, anything interesting, send them over to observing@amateurastronomy.org, and I'd be happy to share them during my Sky This Month presentations. And so we will move on to Stellarium for a night sky tour of the sky between now and our next meeting, which is exactly 1 month from now on March 14th. So heading over to Stellarium here, I have the night sky set for February 14th, 2025 from Hamilton at 9 p.m. So looking over here in the western sky, you can see all the constellations I spoke on last month, Cetus and Pisces, and the fall constellations over here, Andromeda, Eridanus. They're beginning to set lower and lower and lower. Triangulum and Aries as well. Be your last opportunity to view a lot of those objects until late in the spring and summer when they become visible in the early morning sky. Moving up towards the zenith here, we have all of the winter constellations, which are nice and well placed in their highest point in the sky for the year. So you have great opportunity to see all of those objects in the winter Milky Way, all the way down here from Canis Major up towards Perseus, through Auriga and Gemini, and especially Orion and Monoceros down here. And then moving over to the eastern sky, we have Leo, Sextans, and Hydra, Cancer right up here, and then a lot of the spring constellations, which are slowly starting to make their way up as the night goes on. You can see Virgo and Bootes rising here around midnight, and then following them, Ophiuchus and some more of the summer constellations down here coming up in the very early hours of the morning. So we'll start off with the moon right here. As you can see, the moon for February hits new moon on the 28th at the very end of the month. And then going into March, we have a full moon on the 14th. And of course, many of you know, on the 14th is a lunar eclipse. Now that is the night of our next meeting, so I'll speak more on that next month, but keep that in your calendars. March 14th, we have a lunar eclipse coming up. Now, as I mentioned in my Event Horizon article, the moon this month is really the star of the show for the night sky because it makes a lot of close passes and a lot of conjunctions as the month goes on. So give me 1 second here. So there's already been a few that have passed, but on the night of the 17th, let's go there. On the night of the 17th, if you're willing to stay up until around 4 a.m., you can see right here within 2 degrees we have a nice conjunction between the moon and Spica, which is the brightest star in the constellation Virgo, right there due south. That's the night of the 17th. That'll make a cool target for astrophotographers. Moving on a little bit to the night of the 21st. Again, if you stay up really late or get up really early, you can see here a close conjunction between the moon and Antares, which is the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpius, really low there on the southern horizon. And then even moving further on into March, on the night of the 12th, right here you can see yet again, early morning, close pass between the moon and Regulus, which is the brightest star in the constellation Leo. So if you're an early riser, keep all of those dates in mind. That's the 17th, the 21st, and March 12th. You have an opportunity to get some nice pics of the moon, really close, within a degree or two of 3 of the brightest stars in the spring sky. So again, moon going through from new moon on the 28th, which is the last weekend of the month, your best opportunity to get some clear moonless skies. And then we'll move a little further on and touch on it really quickly here, but I'll save it mainly for next month. On the 14th, you can see right there, right around 3 a.m., we have a total lunar eclipse, a blood moon as they call it. So I'll come back to that 1 month from now, but mark that down in your calendar so you don't miss it if you don't make the next meeting. You don't want to miss that because there's nothing quite like a full lunar eclipse, seeing that nice dark red blood moon up there in the sky and watching the shadow of the Earth slowly cross and then pass over the moon. So moving on to our planets, we'll start off here with Mercury. Now Mercury for most of February was too close to the sun for any good observing. However, let's move back here towards the evening. Just after sunset, you can see here after the beginning of the month, Mercury is now yet again, for a couple hours anyway, an evening object. It reaches its greatest elongation on the 8th, which is its greatest distance from the sun. So just after sunset, looking really low in the western sky here, you can pick out Mercury there. Its magnitude -0.2, which is fairly bright. And on the night of the 8th, or sorry, rather, on nights of the 10th to the 14th, you can see Venus here moves along in its orbit and ends up nice and close here, right after sunset, really low there in the west, next to Mercury. And that'll make some good viewing for you. You can pick out both of those in your scope or your binoculars or take some nice sunset photos of the two. Now Venus, of course, right there as well, at the beginning of March, is still visible for a couple hours after sunset in the western sky, and it's still a nice prominent object, magnitude -4.79, extremely bright. It is dropping lower and lower as the month goes on, however, but it's still up there for you to see in the first half of March. Now moving along to Mars. Mars is still up there nice and high in Gemini. Let's get a little darker sky here, 9, 10 o'clock, and we'll head back to first of the month. Mars is way up there in Gemini for most of the evening until most of us go to bed. It doesn't set until very late in the night or early in the morning, depending on how you want to look at it. But it's there for you to go ahead and take a look at right in the middle of Gemini, and see if you can train your scope on it, get some high mag, and break out that small red disk of the red planet. And of course, I think you might have just seen it right there, but on the 8th of March, just a week before our next meeting, there is a very nice close pass between the moon and Mars right here. You should be able to get both of them in the field of view of a wide angle lens, certainly within binoculars, right there in Gemini. So another good opportunity for you to get some pics and go out and see the two, the moon and the red planet. Keeping along over to Jupiter. Jupiter is still visible in early March for a good portion of the night. However, it is setting around midnight as the month goes on. So you want to get out there earlier on in the evening and earlier in the month of March if you want to get some more views in of the King of Planets right over here. And again, as always, keep an eye out for the Galilean moons and keep an eye out for transits across the disk, both of the moons themselves and of their shadows. Saturn, unfortunately, as you can see right here, is now really not an object you're going to be getting much views of, or getting many views of. It sets right after sunset, so maybe at the end of February, if you have a nice, clear, low western horizon and some good luck with very steady skies, you might be able to pick out one last view of Saturn. But it's going to be tough. Maybe go out and try it if you really want to see those rings one more time, but the opportunity is limited. The other two planets, we have Uranus, which is still up there in Aries, just over towards the west, or rather, yeah, towards the west of Taurus, and that's visible for most of the night still until around midnight. Go out and take a look for Uranus, and then Neptune, unfortunately, is setting almost around sunset as well, so not much out in the way of viewing for Neptune this month. Now moving on to some of the deep sky objects for February. As I said in the article and earlier on, February is the best time to get all of those classic famous winter objects that amateur astronomers know and love. Let's move towards the beginning of the month, March 1st, right here. And we'll go to around 10 p.m. in a nice dark sky. And you can see over here in the southwest and high up in the southern and western sky, all of your winter constellations, Gemini and Auriga, Monoceros, Orion, Sirius, and Canis Major. They're all placed at their best opportunity of the year. And there's plenty of objects that you can see here in the winter Milky Way, plenty of open clusters, plenty of nebula. Of course, for a beginner, astronomers, the Orion Nebula right here underneath his belt, M42 and M43, are probably the single most famous deep sky object in the entire night sky, and it's definitely something that anybody with any scope or even binoculars or even your naked eye, you can go out and see. And the more aperture you have, and depending on the different filters you are, you can pick out so much detail in this wonderful complex of nebula right here. And there's just so much you can see, and it's always a favorite for astrophotographers as well because it is just so bright and so big and so vivid. So this is your best time of the year to view it. It's placed really well, and it's up there just begging to be seen. Plenty of other objects in the area that I spoke on or wrote about in the article as well. We have M41, which is the little beehive cluster right here in Canis Major, right in the heart of the dog. Wonderful little open cluster right there. And then there's M47, M93, M46, which are other open clusters as well over in Puppis, down in this area here. You can see right up here there's 46 and 47. And this whole area is just chocked full of them. A lot of these are smaller and a little bit dimmer, the NGC objects. But still, especially for anybody with a 8-inch or 10-inch scope, this is an area that you want to just focus on in the month of February because there's so much you can see, and you can literally just go out there and pick out one after the other, all in the same area of sky. And with a clear dark sky, nice big scope. You can probably bag easily 40 to 50 different objects, all within the span of a couple hours. And in this region too, there are, of course, some other nebulas. Up over here in Orion, you've got M78, Casper the Friendly Ghost Nebula, as Stellarium calls it. A really nice reflection nebula here. Looks almost like a crystal ball or an orb that's blocked off by dust lanes. This is a reflection nebula. Another beautiful one in Orion. And there's just so much in this area as well. You can even see on Stellarium all the wisps of nebula in here. A lot of these aren't for visual observers, but for our astrophotographers in the group, you have the Witch's Head Nebula down here. NGC 1909, which is a great object for anybody wishing to get a nice big wide field view of. And you can pick out basically any of these nebulous regions here for astrophotographers. You know what settings to use, you know how to do it. You all know me, I'm not very much of an astrophotographer, but there's plenty that you can get just over in Orion and in the winter Milky Way to really fill up your portfolio of astrophotos. Right here, the Rosette Nebula, NGC 2244. I've spoken about that before, but another fantastic astrophotographer's target. So, like I said, just plenty of opportunity here for you to see all sorts of different objects. And of course, there are some planetary nebula that are packed in this region as well, and up in Auriga and in Taurus too. There's just so much here you can't even really cover it, but if you Google anywhere or check out any Sky Atlas or any amateur astronomer's book or star atlas, you can see that the winter Milky Way in the region of the Winter Triangle is one of the prime areas in the night sky for you to go out there and bag a bunch of deep sky objects. So next month will be March, and that will be the month of the Messier Marathon, and I'll be speaking about that, and as well the lunar eclipse happening on the 14th. And so for the rest of February, just see how many objects you can pick out in this area of the sky here in this stretch. I'd like to see if anybody's able to hit 50, 60, even 70 different objects if they stay out for one full night and just work their way from Perseus all the way down to the horizon. And of course, as the night goes on, later on, around midnight, then you have over here in Virgo and Leo all of the spring galaxies. I'm sure I'll make my way to them in April or so, but the Virgo cluster of just dozens and dozens of elliptical and spiral galaxies you can pick out too. This truly is the best time of the year for seeing a wide variety of deep sky objects and seeing a lot of them. So, if you can brave the cold, stay warm out there, happy observing, happy hunting, and all the best to you, and I will see you all in March. Thank you very much.